I'll be honest, I don't like making a video like this. Now, if you come onto this video expecting somebody to be ranting, raving, shouting, swearing, you've come onto the wrong video. You've come onto completely the wrong video. And I suggest that you go to another one. However, if you want a mature, condensed reason why the UK is in a state of disrepair, that the UK, a country that, I love dearly, it's been my home for years. And of course, if you want an honest opinion of why things have collapsed and, who is to blame for that, then, this is my opinion. And in this country, and I want to make this clear now, you have freedom of speech. Um, the freedom of speech enables you to say how you feel, be that about anything at all, be it football, be it politics, which, to be honest, I don't like particularly talking about politics, but be it about anything of your interest. It could be what you prefer, what you like for dinner, what clothing brand's best, so on and so forth. But of course, this is a very political video, and this is my opinion on the state of the UK and why the UK is in trouble and why the UK has a problem. Um, Now, I'm going to break it down into certain segments. Now, the first segment I want to break it into is, of course, the national debt. Um, and don't get me wrong, I was very, very young during, the days of the 80s. And I know that a lot of people went through some particularly bad times at that point, under certain governments. Um, of course, I was oblivious to that, busy playing Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever I wanted to play that day. Um, but as I matured and as I, grew up, you start to realize this sort of thing. Um, and to be honest, the UK was, after that period of time, quite a good place. We did have the boom years. We had things where, when things got better. And, I remember, my early teens where things were really, really good, in this country. But there is a massive problem. And that's what this video is all about, these massive problems. Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that this country is in masses of debt. This country is up to its eyeballs in debt. And that debt, it can't all be l- sat at the current Labour government's door, but a lot of it is down to the Conservatives. But Rachel Reeves's budget has not helped at all. It's not got that debt under control, and it's only making things worse. Now, what's going to surprise you is I'm going to turn around and say, with regards to the farmers and their inheritance argument, and of course the protests, the farmers' protests that have been ongoing, and why I'm right behind them. Now, you take the benefits away from a large group like that who are feeding the country, who are looking after the country. You then, if they decide to pack up their farms and go, it then goes to the corporates. And the corporates are, you do not want, one single company or, a couple of companies just controlling that. We've got a very, very privileged position in this country where, the farmers have got control of their land, and it's feeding it down. And don't get me wrong, you watch Clarkson's farm, it's not an easy job. It's not it doesn't bring loads and loads and loads of money in, but they do have benefits. Um, and you cut off that, future income stream for families, and that will drive proper farming families out of their their space. It'll push them out of where they've been making income for years, and it will drive it into the hands of corporates who are much, much larger as well. So that's a big, big problem. The other big problem is, of course, the Renters' Rights Act. Now, Keir Starmer has decided that he is going to abolish Section 21s. Now, whilst this looks good on paper for people in the rental market, and let's be fair, it is a nightmare for my generation and younger generations to actually get on the property market because of the national debt that's been accumulated over years. Let's be fair, they didn't do a very good job during COVID, but because of the national debt, it has caused an absolute mess with regards to people getting on the property ladder. It is a mission. People need high deposits. People need thousands in a deposit to get on that property ladder. The other alternative is renting. Now, if you take away Section 21s, it might sound good because those people can't be kicked out of their property just willy nilly. But that also drives landlords out of actually renting their properties in the first place. So those landlords actually, decide to sell up their properties to a housing, you know, a, a buyer's market that's not really moving very fast at all, instead of renting it out to a family. The landlords that still exist will therefore ask more for their rented properties because there is more demand from people of this generation. So by abolishing Section 21s, which is a no fault eviction, you are destroying effectively people's of my generation, younger people's generations, actually getting on that property market in the long run as well, because the rents will go up, everything will increase. If there's damage to a property, again, it, it will go up. Um, so they haven't thought these sort of things through. Keir Starmer is making an absolute mess of the United Kingdom at the moment. You know, the debt is ridiculous. It is zooming up. Um, but there is other things as well. Why the UK has a problem. And one of the biggest problems is the actual um, right to have a jury. You know, say, for example, in this country, historically, if somebody was taken to court for something, you know, they would have a fair trial. Everybody is entitled to a fair trial. What David Lammy has suggested is to actually remove a jury away from everything bar the most serious of crimes. Now, what's weird about this is the most serious of crimes surely would be the ones that least need the jury. Now, that might sound bizarre, but those ones will have the most evidence. They'll have the most eyewitnesses. They are the most serious of crimes out there. Um, what I'm talking about here is going back to freedom of speech. There was a lot of people that were arrested and charged with having an opinion. Freedom of speech. It was dressed up, you know, as hate speech at the time. Now, like I say, This is a democracy. You have a right to say what you want, and another person can debate that and say what they want. That is democracy. I'm not, hate speech is not right. However, you know, you are allowed to say online what you think about government. You are allowed to say what you think about certain things. We'll come on to migration, and I know people have got opinions on that, and I've probably got very different opinions on that front. But, in all honesty, everybody has got a right to turn around and say, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that, without the risk of then being taken to what is a court, and then because of the removal of the jury being decided by one individual, a state sponsored individual. It's not right. The Magna Carta was put in place to actually give people a fair trial, to give people that jury. To be honest, it doesn't need changing at all. It's worked for all these years, and mistakes will be made because it is just one person deciding. It's not right. And this Labour government, by abolishing a jury, by abolishing the right to a fair trial, will make big mistakes which will harm people in the long run. But it's not just that. There is cancellations of local elections within this country that are being muted by this government. Now, I've looked into this, and no way should a government election be cancelled because of a desire by somebody. Elections should go ahead on the day that they are set, unless they are called at an earlier day. They cannot and should not be cancelled because of what a government in power feels. Everybody has the right to vote in this country. Everybody has the right to remove a government that they don't see fit. I know that there is a lot of people in this country who, and if you look at, of course, the media, both locally and nationally, there is a real push towards reform. And there's also a tag that goes with, reform voters that has been thrown about quite a bit. And I want to have my say on that because that tag is right wing. The right wing tag, I think, is abhorrent, and it's for a number of reasons. Reform have come out with some very, very good policies. I know we're going to go back to migration, but they have come out with some very, very good policies. Labour managed to get into government because of the mess that the Conservatives made. The Conservatives, over their 14-year spell, made numerous errors. And when people who have defected to reform, such as Suella Braverman, when those sort of people have defected to reform, those are the people that were pushed out by the Conservatives because they stood up and they gave a difference of opinion. Those same people are people that a lot of people in this country will resonate with. And therefore, not everybody who is going to support reform are right wing. There's probably a very small number, but most people will think that there is no other alternative because of what the Conservatives have done before, because of what this Labour government is doing to this country at the moment. And the cancellation of elections is not right. It's something you have got a right to vote, you've got a right to make your own decisions, and you have got a right to remove a government who you do not see fit. And this government, in my honest opinion, and it might not be your opinion, I'm quite happy to, debate that. Um, but this government is not right to govern. For example, they brought in ID cards as a talking point recently. Now, ID cards are not something that's new. They've been mentioned before by Labour governments. Um, the problem is, and this kind of ties back into the migration piece, is that people are concerned about this government and saying particular things against this government because they're frightened of what might happen. Those ID cards give people access, or could give a government access to your bank account, could give them access to your email, your internet history. It could give them access to jobs. It could give them access to absolutely everything, could be tied to that ID card. Um, you could get a speeding fine, and that could affect something else. It could enable a government to actually take money straight out of your bank account. This is why people are worried about ID cards. But if you are going to implement ID cards, you can't do it just for people that you know about. You have to do it for all. And this is where we'll come on to the migration piece. Now, migration is not a bad thing. People coming over to this country is not a bad thing. People that contribute to this country is not a bad thing. Nurses, you know, police officers, people who can bring a trade to this country, who can enhance this country, is not a bad thing. Um, so I'm all for migration. However, the thing is if you are going to do ID cards, you have to do it for every single person, who steps foot in this country. And of course, it's been crushed anyway, which is a good thing because ID cards is not right. You've got passports, you've got driving licenses. You shouldn't have to be tagged your every move to a card. Um, but where we're coming back onto the migration side of things is, so as everybody knows now, I'm in favor of legal migration. Now, I feel sorry for people when they do come over to the UK, um, from places where they might not have the opportunities. However, this country is only so big, and that's the sad fact, is it's only so big. And there will be that element that not every person that comes into this country is going to be here for the right intentions. And those people that come in with without the right intentions, what happens? At this moment in time, this country has a problem because they have not got control of this fact. They have not got control of where they don't even know who these people are. Would you allow somebody that you don't know who they are into your house? You probably wouldn't. So therefore, that's why legal migration is important for the nation. But illegal migration is something very, very, very different, and something that I understand is a very difficult conversation to have, but also a conversation that needs to be had because, in all honesty, we need people who have got talents, who have got trades, who can bring something to this country. We cannot allow every single person in because we're just not big enough as a country. And what we should focus on is how we can help them in their countries. But this country and this government have caused an absolute uproar. It's sad to see where we're going. Like I say, I don't like having or making a video of this sense. The sole reason being is because it's not comfortable. It really isn't comfortable for me. It's probably not comfortable for you. Um, and what we want to do is see things get better, but we can't see things getting better without being able to talk, without being able to give our opinions, without being able to say we don't really agree with this, we don't really like this, we want to see this done differently. So that is my piece. The UK is at a problem point. It is at a pathway. I hope that things get better. Um, I don't want to see more people of my generation leaving this country for better climes. And let's be fair, there's some countries out there that people go into, where they do have, job opportunities, and they've got, opportunities to make more money. They've got more. The debt isn't astronomical. Um, this is a big problem, and unfortunately, Keir Starmer and his government have not helped anybody of my generation, and they continue not to help anybody of my generation. I'd like to hear what you think below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Um, like I say, it is my opinion, and I've got every right to that, and so have you. And if you do disagree, I have no problem at all about that. Um, but things are not going to get better. They're only going to get worse. Um, and I just want the UK to get back to a position where people are feeling safe. The crime rate has gone through the roof, of course. That people feel that they're being treated fairly. That people are able to say what they think, what they believe, what and have a debate about that, and feel that they can have a debate about that. That they're able to vote properly, and that we are bringing in the best talent globally. We're not just opening our doors for everybody, because as a country, we are not a big country. We're tiny in all respects, and by all means, help people abroad, but we cannot at this moment in time, open ourselves to, people that we don't know who they are, or we don't know, what the intentions could be. Would you allow somebody you don't know into your home? That is the question. Um, like I say, it's an opinion, you know, and I'd like to hear what you say, but at this moment in time, um, yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, are at wit's end. We feel that the rights that was written in the Magna Carta, are being taken away. Um, the right of voting when we want to at a set time, which is proper governed, to remove, a party potentially that we disagree with. I'm not saying which way to vote or anything like that. Um, that we feel that we can't debate anything. Um, that's why this video's been made, and this is why, you know, I hope things do improve in the future. But yeah, at this moment in time, this country is in a bad way. But yeah, no, thank you for listening to my you know honest opinion for 25 minutes. And yeah, it's probably too long a video, but it kind of signifies what the heartbreak of this nation is.